Okay, today we're going to be talking about converting radians to degrees and degrees to radians. Everyone has a notes sheet without headphones in our ears or phones in front of us to distract us. All right, so let's look at your notes. Wow. So on your notes packet, if you open it up to the second page, so again, second page, you'll see this. So this is a alternate notes sheet that's already filled out for you. The one thing I want you to notice, or actually I want to ask you, if I were to ask you about an angle, usually you give me, or every time we've done angles, you give me a number. And how do we measure angles? What? Degrees, right? So a right angle is 90 degrees, not just 90, right? So there's another way to measure angles, not only degrees, but also radians, okay? Have y'all heard of radians before? No? But you'll use them in the future, for sure, in Algebra 2 and onward, so this is the beginning of something awesome and special. So, radians and degrees can be used to measure arcs and angles. If you look right here, this is kind of what we're talking about. I know you know that 12 inches equals a foot, 1 foot equals 12 inches. They can convert back and forth between inches and feet, right? Similarly, you can convert between degrees and radians, okay? Now, how many radians equal how many degrees? Well, it says it right here, okay? 2 pi radians equals 360 degrees. So one whole circle is 2 pi radians. And just 1 pi is half a circle, so 180 degrees, okay? So I want you to flip back to the front page. We're going to fill out the front together. Just wanted to show that to you. And we're going to write what I just said off to the side here. So 2 pi radians equals 360 degrees, right? 2 pi radians equals 360, okay? And 1 pi radian equals 180 degrees. Just knowing that conversion is pretty much all you need to know to be able to do all these problems, okay? But I'm going to show you examples, so that way you know the different types of examples. There's going to be 3 different types you're going to see for sure, okay? Let's start with example 1. Now, example 1 says convert 100 what? Degrees to radians. So everything we need to know is in this rectangle up here in the middle. Which one says degrees to radians? The first one, the top one, or the bottom one? Top one. Degrees to radians. Okay, that's what that little arrow means. Degrees to radians. So it tells us what we need to do. Okay. So first thing we're going to do is write the original degrees, 100 degrees. Okay. And what we're supposed to do to that is multiply by pi over 180. Okay. Multiply by pi over 180. Okay. So anytime you're converting, you're just multiplying by a fraction and then simplifying it. So here's what I'm going to write. Times pi over 180. Okay. Before you type it in your calculator, okay, radians are always in terms of pi. Okay? Or we like them to be in terms of pi. Do you remember what that means, terms of pi? That means don't multiply pi. So really what we're going to write is, or type in our calculator, is 100 over 180. What is 100 over 180? 5 over 9, right? So what we end up getting is 5/9, and then we write the pi next to it. Since we did not multiply the pi, we write the pi. So 5/9 pi. Okay. Don't multiply the pi, write the pi. So that's it. When you're given degrees, you're essentially just dividing by 180 and putting a pi next to it. That's it. Okay? So that's degrees to radians. Example 2 and example 3 are doing radians to degrees. Let's read it. Example 2, convert pi/3 to degrees. Does everyone see pi/3 does not say the word radians? But if you see the pi symbol, you know that's radians. That's the measurement, okay? So we are doing radians to degrees, which is the bottom one, radians to degrees. And what's our rule? Once again, we're going to multiply, but this time it's by flipped over 180 over pi. Okay? So we multiply by the inverse. So let's write the original radians, pi/3 times, and this time it's going to be 180 over pi. Now, I know sometimes when you see two fractions, you think cross multiply and divide. That is not what we're going to do because this is not an equal sign right here. Okay? Since this is not an equal sign, it's not cross multiply and divide. It's just multiply. Okay? So top times top, over, bottom times bottom. Okay? But let me remind you of something. Do y'all remember when you did fractions, when you first learned them, if you see something on top that matches something on the bottom, what happens to those two things? They cancel, right? Top and bottom. So the pi on the top and the pi on the bottom cancel each other out. So all we really care about is the 180 and the 3. That's 180 over 3. Okay, so again, if you have a pi on top and bottom, pi's cancel. And what is 180 over 3? 60, right? So we get 60 what? Degrees. So we started with radians, we ended up with degrees. That was the point. Just converting. Okay? So that's cool. Now example 3 is the weirdest one because it says convert 6 radians to degrees. What's missing in the radians that's usually there? The pi sign, right? Usually our radians have pi in them. This time it doesn't. But that's okay. We're just going to get a decimal answer in the end, okay? So let me show you. 6 radians. Radians 2 degrees is the second rule, right? So let's write 6. No pi, because there's no pi in the original radians, right? So 6 times what over what? Okay, if I'm doing radians 2 degrees, I have to use 180 over pi. Okay, so if you see one like example 3, where you have radians without a pi sign, it can't cancel out, so all you do is just plug it into the calculator. Okay, so we're going to do 6 times 180 divided by pi. And you would get 343.78. 343.78 what? Degrees. Okay, so do you see the 3 different types of problems? Degrees to radians, use pi over 180. Radians to degrees, use 180 over pi. If the pi's cancel, get your answer. If there is no pi to cancel out, just type it in the calculator. Please remember though, example 1, don't multiply the pi. Write it at the end. Okay? Now, I want you to get some practice, and I want to check your answers. So I'm going to give you 3 minutes on 1 through 6 to show me what you just learned, and to help you out, both number 1 and 2 are just like example 1. Okay? 3 and 4 are like example 2. 5 and 6 are like example 3. Okay? So I'm giving you 2 of each type of problem that I just went over. See if you can do it. And the notes are on the sideboard if you want to see those, but you should have them written down. So here we go. All right, let's do this. So on number 1, again, it's degrees to radians. So you're doing 45 times pi over 180, right? Do we multiply the pi? Do not multiply the pi. So really what you're doing is 45 over 180 and putting the pi down here, right? So 45 divided by 180 is what? 1 over 4? Everyone get 1/4 pi? Okay. Next one, 120 degrees to radians. So 120 times pi over 180. Again, we're doing 120 over 180 and bringing the pi down to the answer. So 120 over 180 is 2/3. Okay. So if I gave you a bunch of degrees, you could turn them into radians, right? Okay, 3 and 4. We have radians, turning them into degrees. So take pi over 5. And this time we're multiplying, for this conversion, 180 over pi. Does everyone see the pi on top and bottom has to cancel? So really it's 180 over 5, right? What's 180 divided by 5? 36 degrees. 4 is kind of weird, but we can do it. 7 pi over 6 times 180 over pi. What happens to the pi on top and bottom? Gets canceled, right? Now this is weird. There's two numbers on top. Take a guess. What should I do with the two numbers on top? Multiply. So really we're doing 7 times 180 on top divided by 6 on the bottom. And we get 210. Countdown City. All right, example 3. Radians to degrees again, except we have a whole number with no pi. That's like example 3. So we're just going to do 3 radians, 3 times 180 over pi. Just type it in the calculator. 3 times 180 divided by pi gives me 171.89 degrees. And number 6, same idea. 9 radians times 180 over pi. 9 times 180 divided by pi gives me 515.66 degrees. So the back of this front sheet we said was already filled out, so there's some more examples of doing that. Okay. All right, and then what you're going to do is the second page you can separate where it says practice. You're going to do the front side for regular, front and back for pre-AP. 1 through 6 is like example 1. Okay. 7 through 9 is like example 2. 10 through 12 is like example 3. 13, 14, and 15 might look hard, but you can do it. If you could do 1 through 12, you can do 13, 14, 15. Think about it, okay? Read it, think about that. All right, so go ahead and get started on that. If you don't finish, we're going to finish tomorrow and review tomorrow because on Thursday we're going to have a quiz, okay?